Welcome first grade teachers. In this video, we will use the CRA approach to help students understand linear measurement. Our major focus will be on the concrete stage of the CRA progression. The focus will be TEKS 1.7a and b. Before we dive into the strategies, let's discuss underdeveloped concepts students may have. In kindergarten, students learned how to directly compare the length of different objects using descriptive language, such as longer and shorter, but did not use any tools to measure their length. As measurement is introduced in first grade, some students may have a hard time understanding how to use non-standard units of measurement correctly. At this point, students may not fully understand that length is a measurement attribute that describes a continuous distance from end to end, and that there are certain rules to follow to get the accurate measurement of objects. In order for students to develop a conceptual understanding of linear measurement in first grade, students need to develop the academic vocabulary. An important term to introduce is linear measurement, which describes the distance along a continuous line or curve from end to end. Let's explore the concrete stage for 1.7a, which helps students understand what linear measurement is. Students need to explore how to measure the length of different objects with yarn or any other similar tool first, to understand how the length of an object or distance is continuous and cannot be broken in order to be accurate. The first rule that must be introduced is that there must be a defined starting and ending point. Then students can move on to compare the length of different objects to explore how objects can have different lengths. During this stage, students will use comparative language such as long, longer than, longest, short, shorter than, or shortest. Before comparing the actual length of the strings, have students estimate which objects could be longer or shorter to reinforce the ideas of length, distance, and size. After students estimate the lengths using comparative language, have them compare the lengths of strings to determine the actual results using descriptive language. Provide sentence stems to encourage students to use complete sentences orally and in writing to describe their findings. Once students understand the concept of linear measurement, students will be ready to move on to TEKS 1.7b. During this stage, students will explore how we can determine the length of objects not only with descriptive language, but also with numbers in order to get accurate measurements. Teachers may introduce this concept by asking questions such as, can I determine the length of an object with numbers? It is important that teachers demonstrate the right way to use non-standard units to measure length while explaining the rules out loud and recording the information on an anchor chart for future use. Using units to measure length required choosing a tool that is smaller than the object that will be measured, measuring from the starting point to the end point, as well as the tools having to be the same size and placed in the same direction. There cannot be any gaps or overlaps between the items. The use of an anchor chart is imperative, so students can use it as reference when having to measure objects on their own. You may find this exemplar in the companion document, but remember this is only a guide, so teachers have a model to follow when creating the anchor chart with their class. Once the rules of measurements have been explicitly taught, show examples and non-examples of how to use non-standard units to measure an object and guide a whole group discussion of why. Non-examples would not give an accurate measurement. Activities such as this or that will allow teachers to assess understanding and address misconceptions students have developed along the way. You may also find this resource in the companion document of Unit 14. Finally, have students use non-standard units to measure different objects. Offer multiple opportunities to use different non-standard units to measure different objects and allow them to record their finding using numbers and descriptive words. This concludes the explanation of the concrete stage of the CRA progression to help students understand linear measurement.